Welcome to the lab 2023. I was going to try and get you a video before the end of 22, but it didn't happen. There was some weather that kind of screwed up what I was doing, but never mind. We'll talk about this low-cost 7 that we're doing. This beastie here. If you haven't seen the previous videos, this car was started by a guy by the name of John, like 30 years ago. And it's hard building things like this. Don't underestimate how tricky it is. Like, yeah, a few people, it's pretty, I'm not going to say really common, but it is common for people to do it. But I bet you everyone you speak to about it, they'll be like, oh, yeah, it was a bit harder than I thought. So he didn't get it finished. I'm not sure what the reasons were. He had a young family and all that sort of carry on. It's probably something to do with that. Probably may have just given up on it. It went through a couple of hands, and now it's back in the hands of the son of John. And this is like 30 years later. So he's had it for approximately 3 years, I think, and it's ended up here with the intention of getting it going, making it useful for a Motorsport New Zealand club car, hence the roll cage, and some reasonably big changes. I mean, when it was started 30 years ago, we had different ideas on safety than what we do in 22, 23. So there's some changes under the seats, actually made some seats, put a proper transmission tunnel through here, doing the sheeting on that. There's a couple of big drive shaft hoops under there. That's all in previous videos, you can see all that. We've put an exhaust on it. It didn't actually have one before, it kind of just had a pipe that hang outside. So we put a muffler on, which you have to have for Motorsport New Zealand stuff and things these days. Bit of a change in the front suspension pickup points and stuff like that, and the way the steering rack was mounted. And in hindsight, I should have checked the geometry a bit more carefully to ensure we don't have bump steer. Bump steer is exactly what it sounds like. When you hit a bump, the wheels steer, and that's pretty bad. You can have it to a point if you're trying to achieve certain things with suspension geometry and stuff, but the idea generally is to have nothing, and this has got quite a bit, because what happens if both sides hit the exact same things, like say under heavy braking and the front dips down the same amount, same load on both sides, it'll cancel out and won't really be a big difference. You know, you might have toe out or toe in, it won't really affect things too much. If you have just a bump on one side, obviously you've got one wheel steering and the other one not, and the car will be all twitchy and wandery. So I can show you this. This is why the shock absorbers are on the bench there in the middle of your screen next to that bottle on that bench. If we watch this front wheel as the suspension travels, bit of steering going on there, eh? We probably don't have quite that much travel. That started off relatively straight. It's a bit tricky with the shape of the chassis, but you can clearly see there's an angle there compared to there. And the reason why that happens is the position and the angles and the lengths of the suspension arms are not ideal for making neutral, shall we say neutral bump steer. Juice for that. That's maths, don't worry about the math. That's the top suspension arm, and that's the bottom suspension arm, and that's the steering arm. I've tried to draw those 100% parallel in the same way. What's going on there? That one's a bit drunk. It actually won't matter as long as the points are all the same. That would give you nothing, no bump steer at all. They'd be neutral, because everything will travel like this, and it'll just go up and down. It actually won't even camber over or anything like that. So then if you do something like this, so now we've got different lengths, that's going to give you some bump steer. If this is the front of the car, it's going to give you toe out, because what's going to happen is, as this is your top arm, right? You've got your suspension knuckle and you've got your axle hanging out here. This is your steering arm, looking at it from a plan view. If we have that on the front, here's your steering arm. Here's your other suspension arms. Let's not worry about the fact that they need another pivot point. There's the bottom one, and the top one's here. If you lift this up, that is going to arc around and effectively become, not to that extreme, but shorter than what this one will do and what this one will do. So it'll pull the top in as it goes up, and because that's doing the same as what that is, it's going to go, because that's at the front, it's going to go toe out as it goes up. What you need to do is trying to keep them all basically the same lengths. Obviously you can have them in different positions and different lengths and different angles and stuff, but you've got to make sure that it all cancels out so that your standard range of movement equates to basically no bump steer. And that's not what we've got with this beastie. So we'll wait for that to go onto its safety lock, which will go click click, and it'll stop all the noise. There we go. These nasty old Chinese hoists, the valves leak and they slowly creep down if you're not on the safety stop. Just eyeballing this without thinking about it too hard, we can see, let's come down there, we can see the steering rack's too low. Basically that's what's going on. If we lift that steering rack up, get that arm more parallel to the other arms, we'll dial out a whole heap of that. And that's fine, because there's actually a reasonable amount of room in here to do that. I should have thought of it earlier and sorted it earlier when I was doing all this stuff. My bad. I'll just fix that up for him with no time on it at the moment. We'll just get it sorted out. We can easily go up the distance from between that boot and the sway bar there with no problems at all. Just a couple of packers under here, or shift these mounts, one or the other. So we'll do that and we'll see where we're at. Right, some basic shims in there. Just some machining blocks, I guess your clamps for the milling machine, and a couple of pieces of aluminium to get it about right. I have zapped it up and down a couple of times. It's pretty good. I'm not going to say it's mint. Still some bumps here there, but that's for the bulk of the range. That's barely moving. That's way better than what we had. There's a little bit right, it gets quite extreme right at the end, right? But don't forget, the car's going to have some, that's at full droop, we're going to have about that much weight on it, and that actually takes out the bulk of it. From there, there's really not a lot of change, and especially at high loads, at high deformation, I guess you'd call it, high travel of the suspension, it's actually pretty neutral. So I'm pretty happy with that. All we've got to do to sort that out is, these are our mounts on this side here. We've actually got enough safety on these threads for these U-bolt type things underneath here. So we've just got to put a packer in here, a sensible size packer on both sides. Problem solved, heaps better. Make sure we're not hitting anything with our steering shaft that runs through there, and that's that problem resolved. So that's pretty good, and we'll carry on with the rest of stuff and things. The pile of stuff on the bench is growing. The alternator, so it's big enough, so it gets a tick there. It bolts straight onto the engine, and the alternator pulley is going to work with the belts and the pulleys and whatnot, so it gets a tick there. It's old, so there's a strike there, and it's an external reg type, so there's a strike there as well. And in this game it's 2 strikes and you're out, not 3. So track days cost a reasonable amount of money, and you don't want to turn up to the track and have a component let you down. You've wasted all your time, effort and money and lost your fun for the day and all that sort of carry on. So we've been down the road and we've got ourselves an alternator which actually lines up really, really well. That bracket there to the pulley distance is pretty good. It's smaller, which it doesn't matter for us, but it's a bonus. The fan is inside there, so that's, I think it's at the other end here, so that's keeps your fingers out of there, I guess. A quarter of a tick on that one, but internally regulated is what I was trying to spit out. Good, very good, nice and simple. You got a power supply and then a signal light, and that's it. That's all it needs, and then your main battery cable. Very good. We like simple. It's a easily available thing. It's basically on the shelf at a lot of places, certainly in town here in Hamilton where the car is based. So that's very big tick in the box. That'll just more or less bolt onto the car. I do have to make a spacer for this end here, but that's absolutely a piece of cake. So we'll get that on. That's that part of the equation of all the components resolved. Yay, good. Easy. Well, not easy. Had to modify the bracket. Basically, it's just extended, right? The setup that was in here before, that bracket went on to the water pump just here with a spacer which just looked like a nut for something. So I'm not even sure that was actually the alternator that's supposed to be on here. Not that it matters, but we're sorted now. Oh, I've done it too tight and I can't show you the range of movement. There's enough. It's heaps. And yeah, it's difficult to show that as well. But the pulleys line up. They're fine. It's good. So that's sorted. Don't have to worry about that anymore. All we need now is one wire into it and one wire out to the light and main power cable. The starter motor's here, so there'll be a power cable that's through in this general area somewhere away from the hot thing so it doesn't do melty stuff. Alright, the weather's not improving, that's for sure. Yanked all the wheels off, taken brake calipers off. They either need to be rebuilt or replaced. These are years and years and years old. I don't think anyone's rekitted them at any point in time recently, so we can't trust those on a race car, on a racetrack, high speed, etc. So rebuild or replace. We're thinking maybe Woolwoods. This is a Ford Escort diff in the back of it here. There's a common conversion that's done, putting some disc rotors off another Ford, a higher performance Cosworth in fact, and you ditch your handbrake assembly and all that sort of stuff and do a caliper with a built-in handbrake cable and all that sort of carry on. Now this doesn't need that. We'll do a hydraulic one, so I've got to do a bracket here somewhere to put a lever for a handbrake, and we'll do it hydraulically. So we just need probably single pots will be the one. Calipers on the back of here. I've been seeing our mates at Repco there, see? And we got ourselves a brake rotor, which is off a Ford Sierra Cosworth. I probably could leave it in the bag. I'm amazed I got that out of there. Now, it's not going to fit on the correct way because we've got shoes in the way. But that's going to go on there like that. The bore size is slightly incorrect for that, so I can either machine the axle or machine this. This will be easier to do, so that's probably what's going to happen there. Then we've got our wheels over yonder, and pop that puppy inside there. It fits inside the wheel, that's good. Not a heck of a lot of room on the other side of this, so I don't think we're going to be doing twin pot rear calipers. I think we'll do a single pot with the fingers that wrap around the back, front, outside. Should we call it outside? With the fingers that wrap around the outside for low profile and all that sort of stuff. So that's pretty easy. Pretty sure we'll go with what's on Wifey's car and some Pulsar STS calipers. There'll be a standard thing that's real easy to get hold of rather than something that's obscure and difficult. So we'll crack on with that at some point. There's no rush on that. We just wanted to make sure I could suss that out without any dramas. There'll be heaps and heaps of room around stuff and things, so we're not going to worry about crashing into the frame, having to modify the frame and all that. So that can be done when the car is completely in pieces and we've got just diffs sitting here and all this stuff and thing is off being powder coated. So rather than be distracted by that, I'll carry on with something else. Oh wait, there's more. We're still distracted. So brake rotor, excuse me, this surface here is going to be thicker than that. So we need to have a look and make sure that we're going to be alright with brakes, with studs. Which I think we are. I don't think there's going to be an issue there. But I wanted to have a look at the wheels while I was doing that. And I've just noticed, I haven't noticed it earlier, there's an insert missing. from wheel. So we need to get that off and get that resolved. There'll be, I suspect there's some machining to be done here to resolve this. So I'll go and see the boys. I think it's the Aero Machinists in Tirapa can probably sort that out for us. Put another insert in there, fix that. Otherwise we'll get to the point where we're thinking we're finished and we'll find this and there'll be delays. Delays are bad. The irony, 30 something years, delays are bad. Never mind. Right, I'll fix this up. That's an acceptable distraction to get that underway. So much for not getting distracted. I just went and got a cold drink. But in the meantime, I have carried on with it. It's going to make it easier to get this out of here. That's all. That's the reason. I took the old brakes off. There's carnage there. Some pieces here, some pieces there. They'll all go in a box. They can go away. Don't need them anymore. We should actually, while we're at it, do something about making this look pretty later. But maybe cut this off. This doesn't need to be here, this spring seat. And this clamp, plate, retainer for the axle bearing is designed to have a piece of material in between there. That piece of material. So if I replicate the thickness of that, I want to see how thick it is. We might be able to make a bracket that goes on here to hold our caliper, which whatever that will be. Hurry up and do some more work, Lee. Went inside for a drink, heard this almighty crash, and I come out here and maybe I'm just being silly. Maybe that didn't happen at all. So, there are, thinking carefully, no nuts or bolts or any components on this. This is just the chassis, and it's not the finished chassis. They're upside down so I can do this sort of thing. It may not stay upside down. I just tipped it upside down to see what we're looking at for now. There's a whole heap of welding on stuff down there. That one, all that sort of stuff. We'll do all that while this is upside down. Getting ready to go to bare minimum sandblasting and then probably powder coating. There's a bunch of brackets I'm going to cut off. They're just easier to cut off without the axle in the way. Things used to be for the fuel system that we're not using anymore. Stuff and things. It's pretty light, as you would expect. It's airborne. So, and the other end's even lighter, right? So, I don't know what it weighs all up. Might be 100 kgs or something like this. It's not much. Lot of welds and skiddy and stuff. Tubes, rather. It is still upside down. Now it's been on its side, and it's been right way up, and it's been on its other side, and it's been upside down, and it's quite light. You can just pick it up and move it around. So there's a whole heap of holes that were here for rivets. I wasn't going to, but in the end I was like, well, if we're powder coating. So I've filled all those in. That'll stop water and crap and stuff getting into the inside of tubes and making them rust and corrode stuff. Fill up with rubbish. I have been doing, as I said, I was going to do a bunch of welds. So I have been doing all the welds that are on the other side that were difficult to get to while it was all assembled and stuff. I've been running around sorting out all these things. We're getting there. There's still stuff to do. I'm not going to get it finished today, and I figured you guys might want to see some progress on this and have a bit of a laugh and share it to your mates and share it around the internet, and we'll get 1 million views and I'll make $5 and it'll be awesome. So I'll go inside, have a cold drink, post this up. You can have a look. Awesome. Thanks for watching. No, seriously though, thanks for watching. I do appreciate the support. It is good. All right. Cheers, bye.